Good evening, Ambassador.
Good evening, and it's a pleasure to be on your program this evening.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'll get straight into it. There have been riots in Poland concerning the banning of abortions, making Poland one of the countries with the strictest abortion laws in the world. What do you make of this law and the issues raised by critics that it infringes on women's rights to choose?
Well, in recent years, in fact, since 1993, Poland had quite a restrictive law on abortion. It was considered to be a compromise, and like all compromises, it never really satisfies everybody. But it did have the general acceptance, and it allowed for abortion in cases where the mother's life or health were endangered, where there were severe fetal abnormalities, or where the pregnancy was a result of a crime, rape, or incest, for example. The recent ruling of the Constitutional Court that was handed down in October and actually published in just a few weeks ago at the end of January has taken away this option regarding fetal abnormalities. This is quite distressing. There were women actually in hospitals who were being prepared for legal abortion because severe fetal abnormalities had been detected in their unborn children, and they were turned away. They were already in the hospitals. So you can imagine now that a Polish woman in a prenatal test, discovering that she has a child who has no chance of surviving beyond birth or will have a very short and painful life, is now, according to Polish law, forced to carry that pregnancy to term and go through the risk to herself of giving birth to that baby. There is possibly the option that if her health is endangered, doctors could use that as an excuse to carry out a legal abortion. But given the quite draconian now penalties for helping a woman procure an abortion, which are from 3 to 8 years, I suspect that many doctors will find themselves in serious dilemma as whether to help such a mother or not.
All right. Now, Poland is in the middle of some reckoning regarding media laws and accusation by critics that its impact on freedom of information as small media outlets would close. What is the Polish government proposing as a new law to raise money from media companies?
Well, this new proposed tax or levy on the media sector is apparently targeted at the media giants, at the Facebooks, at the Googles, because they're very difficult to catch. They're very elusive. And it's clear that Poland as a country by itself will not be successful in this. This requires concerted action from the European Union, of which Poland is a part. And everybody who understands the way that this current government, with its autocratic leaning tendencies, is actually thinking. It has taken over some small regional newspapers recently, local internet outlets, websites, and now they're going after the critical independent media. So this levy is really very damaging. As you pointed out in your introduction, many of these media outlets, especially the written media, are already suffering because of long-term trends in readership and people turning to the internet, but also the COVID pandemic. People are just buying fewer newspapers, spending less money on media. So there was a very successful, I think, one-day, 24-hour blackout of independent media in Poland. And my feeling is now that the government, because of some internal problems in its own ruling coalition, probably does not have the majority to see this law through. So I'm quite optimistic, actually, that this one is over with. The one that is definitely a more problematic and on the statute books is the very draconian revised law on abortion.
Ambassador Gasek, picking on what you've said, critics have accused the ruling Law and Justice Party of slowly steering the country towards autocracy. Now, what can the EU and other allies do to intervene?
Well, the European Union has actually been aware of many problems that we have experienced over the last 5 years now regarding removing some of the independence from the Constitutional Court that actually handed down this ruling on abortion, probably at the behest of the party leaders, of the ruling party leaders. many things have been under fire. The independence of the judiciary is one, this latest attack on the independence of the media. But sadly, the European Union's wheels seem to grind very, very slowly. And I think there's been a lot of disappointment and disillusionment in Poland on how slowly those mechanisms have come into play. I think a lot of store is now set by the new US administration. The Trump administration were also quite friendly with the current government, not critical of them, with the exception of when American interests, business interests were impacted here. And so I think there's a lot of hope being put now in the new Biden administration. And in fact, last week, the State Department spokesman actually came out and openly criticized the media law and stood in defense of one of Poland's main female activists, Marta Lempert, who has been arrested now on trumped-up charges for taking part in these black protests, anti-abortion law protests by women in Warsaw.
All right. Before I let you go, any last words, Ambassador?
No, it's a real pleasure to be talking to you again. And it's quite amazing that in Zambia you're interested in what's happening in Poland. It's a real pleasure to be able to share some of our concerns and worries here with you. Wishing you all good health as well, and hopefully the COVID pandemic isn't impacting you too much at the moment.
Thank you so much. We pride ourselves at being at the source of the story, so we definitely are interested. Thank you for your time.
It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
All right. That was Ambassador Ursula Gasek, advisor to the Polish Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and the European Union.